starting with Moshe Rabbeinu. Passed away in the year 2488, 40 years after the Torah was given. Yehoshua takes over. He passes away in 2516. And then come the era of either the Shoftim, called the judges, or the elders. Some say it's the Shoftim, some say it's the Canim. They're pretty much the same, interchangeable. And there were 10 generations of Shoftim, stemming from 2516 after Yeshua passed away. And amongst the last of the Shoftim was Shimshon HaGibor. You know Shimshon, Samson? He was from the last. Remember Dvorah? Prophetess Dvorah, but he was from the early Shoftim, of Shoftos. And it lasted 10 generations. It ended right around 2884, or 2831. Shimshon passed away in 2831. He's the last. Eli, you know the story with Eli? Eli HaKohen. When Hannah didn't have any children, he finally begged and prayed very hard, and God gave her, because she had Penina, a co-wife, had many children, 10 children. Elkanah was Hannah's wife, and Elkanah was very distraught that his wife Hannah is so broken. He says to her, "You're worth me more than 10 children. I love you." But that didn't help. And she prayed very hard, and she went to the Beis Hamikdash. She prayed. Eli thought she was intoxicated, inebriated, but she was not inebriated at all. There's a whole secret on the Rebbe on that. How could he have made such a mistake like that? She was not intoxicated at any level. She was brokenhearted, and she had a child called Shmuel Hanavi, the great Shmuel Hanavi, who ordained, anointed King Saul HaMelech. What year was that? Anyone know what year that it was? You don't know. So that was in the year 28. Actually, it was 28 in the 284 something. I don't know the exact year. Shmuel passed away in 2884, and then finally Shaul HaMelech was there for not long. He's a king. David HaMelech is the king after that. He passes away in 2924. Shlomo HaMelech 2964. Then we have a whole separation of generations of kings. The Jews split into two: Malchei Yehuda and Malchei Yisrael. There were Rehoboam, Shlomo HaMelech's son, was the first king of the Jewish people, taking over from his father Shlomo HaMelech in the year 2964, and this lasted until 3327, 363 years. There were also Malchei Yisrael, who also ruled for quite a long time. They were not getting along with the other kings of Yehuda. And Yeshua ben Elah was the last of the leaders, not Yehuda, those that were against the kingdom of Yehuda. And this took place, they lasted for 221 years. In the year 3187, that stopped, but there were still kings of Shevet Yehuda, which went on for all the way till 3327. 3327 is 1 year before the Beis Hamikdash was built. The first Beis Hamikdash was built. It lasted for 410 years. I'll tell you why I'm getting into this. And then we have the men of great assembly. So over here on the board, I have Moshe, Yeshua, Zekanim, Shoftim, 10 generations, and you had Nevi'im. While this was going on, there were also prophets. And for example, Achia Shiloni, Eliyahu Hanavi, Elisha, Zechariah. The last one was Baruch ben Uriah, who received from Jeremiah Hanavi. He was the last of the Nevi'im. They were together, the same generations as the kings. They were side by side. They were prophets and they were kings. In the year 3442, that's when prophecy stopped. And then you had the men of great assembly, namely Ezra, Chagi, Zechariah, Malachi. And you had, if you remember the story with Alexander the Great, that happened in the year 3442. So about 3442, Alexander the Great, this was 70, 80, 90 years into the building of the first Beis Hamikdash. That's when he lived. Okay, then you have, of course, the Zugos. Zugos are the pairs. The pairs mentioned in if you look into Pirkei Avos, chapters of our Father, you'll see, prior to the Gemara we're going to be learning, there were generations, even before Hanukkah. These were pages that went in pairs. There was the Av Bezin, and then there's his deputy. The Nasi and the Av Bezin, and they were together There were groups of pairs for a number of generations. This lasted quite a long time. And it overlapped Hanukkah. Hanukkah happened which year? 3622. So how many years into the first base? How many years was it? Actually, I skipped something. I skipped a whole bunch of things. Purim was way before Hanukkah. Purim happened in the year 3408 or 3404, I should say. And then 4 years later, it was the building of the second base on Mikdash. Yeah, 34. And I said Alexander the Great, he was not during the first, he was during the second base on Mikdash. He lived during the second base, the beginning of the second base on Mikdash, like around 35 years into its tenure, into its existence. And later on, halfway through the existence of the second base of Mikdash, you had the story of Hanukkah, 3622. Good to know this. Hanukkah was how many years after Purim, to be exact? 3404 was Purim, 3,404 years since creation, 3404, 3622, that would be 218 years later. And the story where the Purim miracle happened in 3404 or 3405, some people say 3622 was the Hanukkah miracle. The Hanukkah miracle happened halfway through the tenure of the second Beis Hamikdash, which was destroyed in which year? Second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed in the year, who knows? Second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed which year? So it was built in 3404, 3408 actually was the full, it took 4 years for it to be built. 3408, 420 years later would be 3838 would be the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. Okay, before the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, we had Tanoim. This is where we're getting up to the Mishnah. Tanoim are the sages of the Mishnah. They follow the Zugos. For example, Hillel, Shammai, but before Hillel and Shammai, you had their teachers who were actually converts. Shemaiah and Naftalion were the first generation of Tanoim who lived close to 100 years before the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash, of the Horton Bayesheni. Then you had other great tzaddikim who were also called Tanoim. You had Hillel, Shammai, Shimon, the son of Hillel, Rabbi Gamliel Hazaken, the elder of Gamliel the elder. His son, Yochanan ben Zakkai, was the famous sage who lived right before the base, who lived before and through the destruction. He actually lived to see, he saw the destruction. Right not long after that, you had Rabbi Akiva and the Rashbi who were born and lived after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. They witnessed the aftermath of it, but they were not there when it destroyed. They lived afterwards. So how many generations of Tanoim do we have? How many generations of Mishnah sages do we have? We have 5 generations of Tanoim. Who was the last generation? Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rebbe is called. He codified the Mishnah, and he passed away. Which year did he pass away? He passed away. We're going to put it down. Hold on a second. I want to just get all the information clear before we start the actual Mishnah inside learning. Yeah, 5 generations. Yeah, then we have the last Tana, Rebbe. He passed away, I believe, in the year 3950. So he passed away about 125 years after the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. Yeah, 122 years to be exact. Then you have 7 generations of Talmudic sages, Amoraim. The word Tana means teachers, Amoraim means sayers. They interpret the Mishnah. They are interpreters. They can't argue with the Mishnah. They can only interpret the Mishnah, explain it, and go into great detail, elaborate on the sometimes very concise language of the Mishnah. They come after, these are sages that come after, they're called Amoraim. And approximately 250 years, 7 generations of Babylonian Amoraim. But then side by side was also Israeli rabbis in Israel called Talmud Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud. There's the Babylonian Talmud, 7 generations, and there were the 5 generations of Jerusalem Talmud. The completion of the Jerusalem Talmud was 100 years before the completion of the Babylonian Talmud. And that is why we follow the Babylonian Talmud, because the Babylonian sages saw what the Israeli sages said and disagreed with them. The Israeli sages did not see all the stages of Babel. So you always get the upper hand to those that come later because they saw what their predecessors said. Then what's not so well known, after the generation of Amoraim, we have what we call Rabbanan Sivuroi. These are the rabbis that did get into the Gemara. They didn't get into the Gemara. They almost did. Many of them just gave more elaborate logic on what the Talmudic sages said, and they added something of their own. They weren't really commentaries like Rashi. They were more pretty much almost side by side with the Amoraim. They didn't last very long. They were only about 60 or 70 years. 30 years, everything stopped. The Babylonian yeshivas were closed because of the decree of Persian rulership. And in Eretz Yisrael, they had some more some more of these sages. You've heard the Septuagint, or the 72 sages that they were told to translate by King Ptolemy the Torah in 72 languages. Actually, I'm sorry, 72 sages to translate the Torah into Greek, rather. Not 72 sages, all to translate the Torah into Greek, and miraculously they all made the same exact changes because they couldn't translate it normally. Had they translated the Torah word for word, it would have raised a lot of questions to this King Ptolemy. For example, Bereshis bara Elokim sounds like something created God. Bereshis bara Elokim. Bereshis created God. They had to change it around, so the translation would mean Elokim bara Bereshis. God created the beginning. And into Greek, they translated that way. They made a whole bunch of changes, like 14 or 15 changes, and they all kept in separate rooms. They were not told why they're translating it, and God gave them the same exact thoughts of how to make all those, redactions, all those changes, taking out something, putting in something, so that King Ptolemy wouldn't be able to find any kind of fault with the Torah. Anyways, that was not a very happy day, the fact that he forced them to translate it into Greek, and that happened which year? It's called the Septuagint. Happened in the year 4515. Okay, so now we go up to the Mishnah. Here's the Mishnah, and if you have your first page, you'll see the original. That's in Hebrew, or actually Aramaic. The Mishnah is in Hebrew, but the Gemara is in Aramaic. That's the language they spoke in those days in Babel. The Mishnah, however, is in Hebrew. Okay, so the Babylonian Talmud and Jerusalem Talmud have the same Mishnah. The difference is in the Talmud. Is it Talmud Bavli? Is it the Babylonian Talmud, or is it the Israeli Talmud? But the Mishnah, both of them have the same Mishnah. Different commentary, different Amoraim, second line there, but the same Tanoim. Okay. So now this Mishnah is in Tractate Rosh Hashanah. How do you say tractate? What's the name? You ever hear the word Masechta? What does it mean? Not from the second section, segment. My brother once told me, he was good at coming up with new ideas. He told me the word Mesechet, which was Mem Samach Chav Tov, sounds like Masecha, means a mask. You know the Purim song? Masecha? Masecha is a mask in Hebrew. Hashem masked his infinite wisdom through different subjects. Every subject we can understand. How can we understand it? It's God's wisdom. Hashem put on a mask. And through that mask, we get some droplets of what he really, really meant. When someone leaves this world, in the other world, you get much more. But in this world, we're limited, and we think, I got my, PhD in Talmud, You didn't master a Talmud. Talmud has to master you. It's brought down to our level. So my brother used to translate Masechet like Masecha, a mask. The simple meaning of what you said, segment, different parts of the Talmud, different subjects. But it also can mean that Hashem had to mask himself into different subjects, whether it's the subject of Rosh Hashanah, which is our Masechta, we're going to learn now. Okay, so this is page 16. It's 16a. You see, if you have the first page, it should say, I don't know if it said, I think it might be, forget it. It says Tez Zayin on top over here. You have on top of the page Masnisin. Then you have, of course, a few lines further where it says Gimel Mem. What does the word Gemara actually mean? What does Gemara mean? So there are a few different translations. Gemara can either mean derivations, deriving. We derive from the Mishnah such and such a ruling. The Mishnah tells you the story, tells you the halacha, but it doesn't always speak so clearly. You have to read between the lines. The Gemara reads between the lines and figures out how the Mishnah can't mean what you think it means. It must mean a little different. It has to mean something else. So we go against another Mishnah. So the Gemara will always derive from the Mishnah by understanding it better, different ideas. Also, Gemara can sound like end. How do you say in Hebrew to end? Gomar, end. It ends our question. With the Mishnah, you have a lot of questions. The Gemara is here to end all our questions we have on the Mishnah. Okay, so here you have a Mishnah. Turn to the next page, you have the English. First page is the original. Oh, by the way, in the original, what do you have here? What's this? Who's this? Yeah, I see you learned it already. An expert. Okay, what's Rafi's function? Rafi's function is to explain simple meaning of the Gemara. He doesn't go into bringing contradictions from another Gemara. That's not his business. He'll only bring up questions if right here on the spot things don't make any sense. He has to forewarn questions. But Rashi is doesn't ask many questions. Tosfos, these are Rashi's grandchildren and great-grandchildren and cousins and all that. A whole bunch of people. Rabbeinu Tam is the ringleader, all of them. Rabbeinu Tam was the greatest of the Bali HaTosfos. There are many people, not just one. They're on the left side of the page, and they sometimes disagree with Rashi. And they say, how could Rashi say this? It goes against another Talmudic page. It says it goes against the Gemara somewhere else. So Rashi focuses on the spot. Tosfos goes into he has the entire Talmud in front of him. They have the entire Talmud in front of them, like your 5 fingers. Wait a second, Rashi can't explain Gemara like this. That would go against what it says elsewhere. Well, he argues, and then the commentaries later tried to defend Rashi. I think Rashi didn't know that Gemara. Come on, Rashi was the grandfather of these people. And then you have people trying to explain what they meant. For example, the Maharsha, who lived 400 years ago, tries to question. He asks a question on Tosfos. Wait a second, Tosfos doesn't make any sense. How could you say that? Rashi's right. Then there are commentaries on him to explain what he meant. You keep on going and going and going, and never ending. That's the Maharsha. Anyways, I wanted to show something that you probably didn't hear. I know you've learned a lot. On the top of the page, you'll see, at least Rashi's for sure, Rashi's side, you will see, I mean, you only see one page here, one sample, but if you go through the entire shots, very few exceptions, you will see that the first 4 lines of the page are wide. Not 5, not 3. 4 wide lines are wide, always. In every single page, almost every page in the entire Talmud. Must be a reason for that. Just, I don't know, just a purpose, has to be some kind of meaning for that. Why 4 wide lines? With the exception of 2 exceptions, I'll tell you. There's one page that only has 1 line of Gemara. I know by heart, it's so easy. And then there's another page that has no Gemara on it, just Rashi and Tosfos from the previous page. There is no Gemara on that page. 1 page in the entire Talmud. It's Tractate Nazir 33b. You want to look it up. Tractate Nazir, you can stick to your art scroll. Tractate Nazir, you tell that to your cousin when you're dating. To go, wow, I can't marry you. She knows more than I do. Nazir 33b. Where is the Gemara that has 1 line and 1 line only, and a whole page of Tosfos, like fat Tosfos all throughout the page of 100 lines? It's in Bava Kama 77a. Okay, that's the check you have to give. Where is the Gemara that only has 1 line on it? And where is the Gemara that has no Gemara on it? And no Rashi, just Tosfos. No Rashi either. Just Tosfos. Okay, so here's my answer. There wasn't heard. We learn Gemara and learn Rashi. I got it. I understand it. Can't be divine. I understand it. To remind you, on the top of the page, that the Gemara is based on God's logic, which is hinted in his letters, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Hashem, the tetragrammaton has four letters to it. That name of Hashem is a name that has no meaning. We can't understand what it means. It has no, it doesn't have any connection to any other name except for God. For example, Elohim could mean the judge. Kel can mean strong. All the other names share meaning with other words that are not holy. Elohim can mean judges. Although we say Elohim, but it can mean judges. Yud Kei Vav Kei, you can't even pronounce it right, has no understandable meaning. Right? Not clear. It's God's essence, when he's beyond any particular name. That's our reminder. At the top of the page, we have 4 wide lines corresponding to Hashem's 4-letter name, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Remember, this comes from Torah. It comes from Torah was given at Sinai when Yud Kei Vav Kei was revealed to the Jewish people. So therefore, don't think that you've got it, you've mastered it, and it's just, like any other subject you learn in the secular world, it's not. It's a reminder that it's generated by godliness, hinted in always 4 lines, never 5, never 3. Wide lines. Okay, let's see the Mishnah. So the Mishnah begins But Arba Prokim. Prokim sounds like a chapter, but it also means junctures. But Arba Prokim Ha'olam Nidon. At 4 junctures during the year, the world is judged. So we know about Rosh Hashanah, but there are other times in the year when the world is judged. Not on everything, but on certain things. But Pesach, on Pesach, for the grain, how well your growing season will be as far as the grain, the crops. And we'll soon see why Pesach is for that. But Atzeres, what's Atzeres? On Shavuos, why is Shavuos called Atzeres? Anyone know? Why is Shavuos called that? One of the names of Shavuos is called Atzeres. Why that name? What does Atzeres mean? Huh? What does it mean? Atzeret, Ayin, Tzadik, Reish, Tav, Atzeret. Atzeret means a lot of things. One of the things that it means is gathering. The greatest gathering in Jewish history was the gathering of the Torah. When the Jewish people received the Torah, everyone was there. Every man, woman, and child that ever will live was there, either in body or in soul. So it's the greatest gathering in history. Or it could mean, how do you say in Hebrew, stop? Atzor. You know Hebrew people? Atzor, stop sign. Atzor. Stop what? Stop your counting of the Omer. We do. Counting 49 days. Finally, we stop. Shavuos, night of Shavuos, we don't count anymore. We counted 49, we stop counting. Or stop doing work. We don't do any work on Shavuos. Well, wait a second, Rabbi. We don't do work on Pesach either. Or on Sukkot either. Why would Shavuos be called stop, don't do any work more than Pesach? What's the answer? Because Pesach had a middle day, have Chol Hamoed. On Chol Hamoed, you could do some work. You have Chol Hamoed Sukkot, you have Chol Hamoed Pesach. We don't have Chol Hamoed Shavuos. So throughout the entire 48 hours or 24 hours, 48 hours, depending if you live in Israel or you live here, throughout the entire Yom Tov, there's no break where you get a Chol Hamoed in between. It's forbidden to do malacha through and through. Another reason why we focus on the not doing any work on Shavuos is because Pesach, what is Pesach known for? Not doing any work? No. You eat matzah, kagamatzahs, can't eat chametz. What are sukkahs? Shit the sukkah, you bench full esrog. No one's going to talk about, well, on sukkahs we don't do any work. Yeah, what else we know? What stands out is the mitzvahs of the day. But Shavuos has no mitzvahs. It has some hugging, yeah, cheesecake, customs. But there's no mitzvah mentioned in the Torah about Shavuos. So therefore, what is it known for? It's a Yom Tov. You can't do any work. Atzor, Atzeres. Okay. It's really not part of the Mishnah's message here, but I just wanted to stop off and let you know that. So what happens on Shavuos? For the fruit of the tree. Why the fruit of the tree on Shavuos? We'll see that soon. Rosh Hashanah. Oh, that's a whole different story. Kol boy olam. All members of society. Doesn't mean all men only. It means that i.e. all men. It means all members of society. Ovrim lefanav, pass before God, ki b'nei maron. What does b'nei maron mean? So Rashi says, later, the Gemara will talk about it later. I'm not telling you right now. Rashi says on the Mishnah, as the Gemara will explain. So I'll have to tell you what the Gemara is going to say. Gemara says ki b'nei maron means like sheep. Sheep, when they go out, when they're counted for meiser or tithing, they go out in a very narrow pathway. And they go out one by one. It means God checks, inspects, and judges each person individually, not the Jewish people at large, but everyone is scrutinized one-on-one, a one-on-one judgment. But don't worry, Hashem knows you better than you know yourself. So if He knows you so well, He obviously wants the best of you. So the judgment is a judgment that is very singular. You're singled out. It's individualized, just like sheep go out one by one. Some say it means something else. It means the Maron is a place in Meron, a very narrow bridge that is so narrow you can fall off the bridge on both sides. It's only wide enough for one person to go through. Most dangerous bridge over there. So only one person can go. You got 2 people, you're in danger of falling on either side. You have to have single file. One by one. Place called in Meron. So they call Kibnei Meron, just like that highway, that bridge is very, very narrow. So too, God's judging is one by one, each person individually. Okay. That happens on Rosh Hashanah. So far we have 3. We have Pesach, we have Shavuos, we have Rosh Hashanah. Ubechag, the holiday of Sukkot, Nidonin al Hamayim. We're judged for the water. Now, the truth is, the Mishnah didn't do it in right order. Because first comes Sukkot, then comes Pesach, then comes Shavuos, then comes Rosh Hashanah. The Sukkot is the year before. When you're judged the year before. So it's the Sukkot before, and the Pesach before Rosh Hashanah, and the Shavuos before Rosh Hashanah. So really, the Mishnah should have started off with Sukkot, and then gone to Pesach, and then gone to Shavuos, and then Rosh Hashanah. But it did give the order of the holidays. The order of the holidays, Pesach is called the first of the holidays because it's in Nisan. But as far as the judgment is concerned, the first judgment is in Sukkot, where rainfall is needed. You know, we ask we already praised Hashem with rain. In Israel, they started right away, pretty much right away, to ask for rain. So that's the time when we judge during the holiday of Sukkot for how much rainwater will fall, how well will the world be sustained with water throughout the year. And when it comes to the other days, either rain or the fruit of the trees, and then human beings. Okay. It's either, you see over here on the bottom of the page, you'll see footnotes from the art scroll. I'm sorry, I actually skipped the line. How do we know that at Rosh Hashanah everyone is judged? In Amar, he quotes a pasuk. This is a pasuk in Tehillim, Kapitel 33. Shenamar hayotzer yachad libam, the one who fastens their hearts together, i.e., the creator of man, who created man on what day? On Rosh Hashanah. Adam Rishon was created on Rosh Hashanah, meaning he has a connection to the day of judgment. Hamavin el kol ma'aseyim, who understands everything that has to be done to these people. Now it's mentioned that Rosh Hashanah, why was Rosh Hashanah picked as a day of judgment? Not only because Adam was created on that day, because he was judged on that day. He sinned. And Hashem gave him a innocent verdict. He sinned and should have right away, yet he lived 1,000 years. He was exonerated, vindicated, in spite of the sin. So just as he was forgiven for his sin, the first sin, we believe this is a great day for Hashem to repeat himself and forgive us as well. But it's not just that he was created on that day, it's also a day where on that very same day that he was created, he also partook of the tree of the knowledge and sin, but yet he was forgiven. Okay, that's what the footnote 2 says. There's an opinion, Rabbi Yeshua, who says the world was created in Nisan, not in Tishrei. How will he explain? I'm sure he also agrees Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment. And the answer is because Yom Kippur for sure is the day of atonement. Since Hashem forgives Yom Kippur, and probably that whole atonement process begins at the beginning of the month. But even if he would say that the world was created in Nisan, would agree, but the day of judgment is in the month of Tishrei. Okay. Now, take a look at footnote 3. The source for the fact that Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot are days of judgment for the items mentioned in the Mishnah, where's the source? Well, he says it's explained in note 24. If you look further on, you look into the third page I gave you, footnote 24. It says like this brisa, okay. Let's skip to the third line because you're not going to. The first two lines are third line of footnote 24. At the end of the line, it says, "Indeed, Ran is one of the Rishonim who lived a couple hundred years after the Rambam." So he states that the fact that God ordained these ceremonies on their respective festivals is the source of our knowledge that the various judgments occur on respective holidays. Every of these holidays, there's a certain mitzvah. On the Pesach, there's the Korban Omer, the Omer offering. And the Omer offering is the schus, in the schus of offering that barley offering on Pesach, second day of Pesach, Hashem blesses all the grain of that year. Shavuos is connected with trees. Why is Shavuos connected with trees? That's a good question. Apparently, it's also related to grain, the two breads that are offered on Shavuos, not fruits. But because we cannot, something very interesting I'll share with you. What we said it here or not. Yeah. Even though wheat, which is what we offer on Shavuos, is not a tree, not a fruit. So why would Shavuos be the time designated for blessings for trees? It's a judgment how well trees will do this year, how well the fruits will grow, because there is an opinion who says that the Eitz Hadas was not actually a fruit, it was wheat. At that point, wheat had a taste like a fruit. Because of the sin, it lost that taste. So wheat originally was a fruit. And through the holiday of Shavuos, we removed the chet of the first sin. And thus, even though we're bringing bread, two breads, the Beis HaMikdash, it does affect how our trees will grow also. This is what some of the commentaries say. Let's go back to the first page. Okay. Okay, I'm going to skip the whole first left side of the page. Let's go to the right side of the page. Now, this Gemara asks is a little bit complicated, but I want you to be aware of something. A Mishnah that's mentioned with no name means the halacha is like that. So this is according to the halacha, and it's universally accepted. Rebbe is the one who compiled the Mishnah. If he didn't mention any names, that means that this is the opinion, final ruling. Gemara has a very strong question over here. There is another source called the Brisa, a list of a whole bunch of opinions, and neither of them seem to agree with this Mishnah. There it lists a whole bunch of different opinions as to what happens throughout the year, all the days of judgment, and it does not seem to agree with our Mishnah. Neither of the three opinions seem to fit with our Mishnah. Gemara is therefore puzzled, who is the author of our Mishnah? Because when you quote a Mishnah, not a Mishnah source, a Brisa, right? You know what a Brisa is? A Brisa is also studied by the same group of sages, Mishnah sages, but it was studied outside of the Beis HaMedrash. This was informal talk. In the Mishnah, it was formal. Everything was done in an organized way. The Brisa is when the sages that discussed the Mishnah went outside. The word Brisa means outside. Bar Yesa. They went outside and they discussed it. And very often we get a lot of new information as to what the Mishnah means from the actual Brisa. Not the Gemara. This is the Brisa is side by side with the Mishnah. So the Brisa will often give you much more opinions. It lists all of them, and neither of them fit our Mishnah. That's the Gemara being puzzled over here. Mani Masnisin. Who in the world is the Tana of our Mishnah? It seems to make statements that don't fit any of the Tanoim that will be mentioned in a Brisa. Lo Rabbi Meir. It's not Rabbi Meir. Meir happened to be the student of Rabbi Akiva. It's not Rabbi Yehuda. It's not Rabbi Yossi. And it's not Rav Nosson. And we all know there are only four opinions, and our Mishnah seems to be a new opinion. Where did it come from? You would think on the list, when we're listing all the different opinions, you'd think our Mishnah would be one of them. It's not. And the Gemara continues. Where do you see? Where do we see Rav Meir's opinion, Rav Yehuda's opinion, and Rav Yossi and Rav Nosson, whom seem to all disagree with our Mishnah? The Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Hakol nidonim Rosh Hashanah. All matters are judged on Rosh Hashanah. Ugzar din, the final decree, the final sealing of a decree, Ugzar din shalahem nechtam, is sealed on Yom Kippur. Who says this? Rav Meir. Does Rav Meir mention a word about Pesach, about Shavuos, about Sukkot, about anything else besides Rosh Hashanah? No. So obviously Rav Meir feels Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot are not days of judgment. Our Mishnah says that there are 4 junctures in the year. We get judged. Rabbi Meir says only once a year we get judged. Rosh Hashanah, it begins, Yom Kippur, it ends, case closed. Our Mishnah is not Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, let's try Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, he says, Hakol nidonim Rosh Hashanah, all matters are judged on Rosh Hashanah, Ugzar din shalahem, and the decree, the final ruling, Nechtam kol echad v'echad bizmano, and their decree is sealed, each and every one in its proper time. Meaning, Rosh Hashanah is the Gzar Din, is the ruling, is the beginning of judgment for all matters. Human beings, trees, water, grain, that includes everything. The Pesach, on the other hand, is like the Yom Kippur for Tevuah. Shavuos is like Yom Kippur for trees. And Sukkot is like Yom Kippur for water. The Pesach al Tevuah, Pesach is the time where Tevuah gets its final ruling, which is grain. Atzeret is Shavuos al Peres Ilan, on the fruit of a tree. Bechag nidon al Hamayim, and the festival of Sukkot, that's when they're judged for the water, final judgment. The Adam and the person, nidon Rosh Hashanah, ugzar din shalo nechtam Yom Kippurim. He agrees with Rabbi Meir about this, that yes, we're judged on Rosh Hashanah, and the final decree is on Yom Kippur. That does not fit our Mishnah, because here it says that not that we're judged, not on Pesach is the beginning of the judgment. Our Mishnah sounds like that Pesach is the beginning of the judgment. And this Mishnah says, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that no, beginning of a judgment for everything is on Rosh Hashanah. The final ruling of whether it's grain or whether it's trees or whether it's water, that takes place different holidays. That's the final decree. So that doesn't fit our Mishnah either. Then we have another opinion here. Rabbi Yosef Omer, forget about Rosh Hashanah being the only time we're judged. Adam nidon b'chol yom. A man is judged every single day. And he brings a pasuk to prove that. Let's skip the pasuk. Rabbi Nassan Omer, Rabbi Nassan says, I'll go further. Adam nidon b'chol shah. A person is judged every moment of the day, not just every day. And he brings a pasuk to prove that. So here we see a whole list of rabbis. Neither of them seem to fit our Mishnah. That's the problem I was having over here. Now we ran out of time. I don't want to keep you. This might not be the most interesting part of the Gemara. I don't want to get to it soon. What I want to really get to, and I'm going to leave it for next week, is person is judged every single day. Then why do we make a big deal of Rosh Hashanah? If you're judged every single day, what's the big deal? And we don't say Hallel on Rosh Hashanah. You know why? Because we're being judged. But wait a second. If being judged is a reason not to say Hallel, we shouldn't say Hallel any day of the year, including Pesach, Sukkot, and Shavuos. And if it's not a problem to say Hallel, even though you're being judged, so let's say Hallel on Rosh Hashanah also. How do you reconcile the opinion that says we're judged every day with the belief that Rosh Hashanah is a day of judgment? In fact, we have in our Machzer, we have that everyone seems to say. It doesn't seem to fit. This is the universal question that everyone asks. And I'll deal with this question next week. How do we deal with that? And then also another question. Is it really true that we're not judged every day? If we're not judged every day, and everything is Shani Yom Kippur decided, then why do we daven every day? Ask for a shlema. Why do we ask for all these things? Baruch Aleinu, we ask for a good year, a prosperous year. We ask for a refuah. We ask for a lot of things, but they're all preordained in Shani Yom Kippur. So it seems like everyone has to agree that there's a judgment every single day. But we all have to also agree that everyone is judged on Rosh Hashanah. What exactly is going on over here? This will be taken care of, but not today. But we spent a lot of time on the history. I forgot to mention, in between the Rabbanan Sforoi and the Rishonim, we have the Gaonim, who were before Rashi, after the closing of the Gemara. The Gaonim, I forgot all about that. The Gaonim were spanned over 300 years. In fact, almost 400 years. From the year 590 until the year Rashi was born. This is the era of the Gaonim. Rashi was born in the year 1040. 590 to 1040. How many years is that? 450 years. Yeah, 450 years. That was the era of many generations of Gaonim who preceded Rashi. They also can't argue. They cannot argue with the Mishnah. They can't argue with the Gemara. And then you have the Rishonim, starting with Rashi's teachers. You have the Rabbi Yitzchak Alfasi, the Rish, he's called. You hear the Rish? Rabbi Yitzchak Alfasi. You have three. You have the Rif, the Ran, and the Rosh. I don't know if you've heard of these three. And they always say the joke: don't rip through the Rif, don't rush through the Rosh, and don't run through the Ran. Rosh means head. It's called Rabbeinu Usher. Rabbeinu Usher lived towards the end, not the end. I would say about 4 generations after the Rambam, and about 6 generations after Rashi, 7 generations after Rashi. Closer to the end of the era of the Rishonim. But the era of the Rishonim lasted also for quite a long time. It lasted for from the year 1040 all the way until the year around 600. So from the year 600, that's when the Acharonim, that's where we are. Acharonim, that would include Rabbi Yosef Karo, by the way, the early Acharonim, the Ramah, all the way up till today's day. All the rabbis of today are called Acharonim. Sometimes we have a different name, Acharone Acharonim, the last of the last. If you really want to put them down, you say Tachtonim, which means something else. So you have Rishonim, Acharonim, Acharei Acharonim, like the stages of 100 years ago, 200 years ago, would be like the Acharoni Acharonim, as opposed to Yosef Karo or the, So I'm going to throw in some more information about the history all the way from Moshe Rabbeinu down. And I want to go to the four portions of Shulchan Aruch. I forgot to mention that. Or Chaim, Yeridea, Evan Ezra, and Peshach Mishpat. How long are the chapters in Shulchan Aruch? Orachaim has 697 chapters, 3 volumes, 697. You have 403 in Yeridea. I'll explain next week what Yeridea is all about. You have 427 in the laws of monetary laws called Kosher Mishpat, and you have 154 in the laws of women called Eben Ezer. But we'll get into more detail. I'd like to go through that in also. So next week I want to mention, give you all the information you need to know the whole, evolution of Torah Sheba'al Peh, where it started from till today. I only went through very briefly the general ideas, but it's important to know what year the Rambam lived, what year the Rosh lived, what year the Baal Shem Tov lived. Don't confuse the different generations. The Shach, the Taz, who are they? When did they live? Good to know these things. So it's out there. Shabbos. Oh, I forgot to take and take. Is there? Oh, she did. Okay.
Why is the Mishnah calls the good God redundant?
Why is it both God?
Like, because of, yeah, he's burning.
Why would they not? Where you don't get? Why do you when you don't? You mean
Oh, okay. They just,
why is it full cut?
yeah, just God is like it, like, yeah, that's what I'm
It's because it's the most joyous of all. The most joyous.
Thank you.